Welcome everyone to the new JFK Show number 202 as we venture forward. Now, I like to let everyone know something. I haven't let anyone know about it yet, but I put up 4 JFK shows on YouTube and created a new YouTube channel called the new JFK Show. And we have 4 episodes and we've been terminated.
Didn't take long, did it?
They took it down.
Didn't take long.
I had 4 views. I had 4 videos, 4 views, and they were all my views. And they came in and took it out.
Too dangerous. It's just too dangerous, Gary. That's what we are. We're too dangerous.
Man, I mean, they didn't give me any chance whatsoever on that. So, all right, I guess
Which were the 4 shows that were so dangerous?
The one with Elena Garo.
Oh yeah, Elena Garo de Paz. Yeah, that was a good one.
That one took down right away. We had
Rod McKenzie.
I can look it up real quick.
Rod McKenzie?
Yeah, Rod McKenzie got taken down.
Well, see, he's talking about Richard Nixon being there with Frank Sturgis, for Christ's sake. That's pretty stunning stuff.
Yeah, and then our show, the one where we had a celebration.
Oh, the 200.
Yeah, the 200th show, and gone right away. You know, so there were only 4 of them, but I guess we're gonna have to put them up on 153 News.
Of course.
Do something else with them. So, what you got for us tonight, Larry?
Well, we continue to look at documents, Gary and Jim, you know, and I just continue to just be completely surprised and amazed by some of the stuff, you know, that I read on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, how long do you have to look until you find something outrageous? Right away, or do you have to dig?
Well, you know, there's so much bunk out there about there not being any smoking guns and any good documents out there, and I completely disagree. I've been saying that since they first started to come out this past July 2017.
Last week's show with Operation Clever Sneak and Operation this and
yeah, right. And yeah, those were very colorful names, you know, for all those operations, and you know, but some of the stuff here that I just want to show Jim tonight here is a little sensitive, you know, let's say, because you know, it involves, you know, a lot of the issues that were going on during the Cold War, and how Kubark, also known as the CIA, dealt with, you know, espionage, you know, and double agents and stuff like that. And I thought that, you know, it would be, you know, quite revealing here. You know,
We're committed to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Larry. So I say, right on.
Yeah, that's why we're not on YouTube.
Well, can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a 98-page document, and it's called Kubark Internal Use Only, Top Secret, Field Double Agent Guide, August 1960. All right. Now, obviously, everybody knows what a double agent is, but this document, this guide, it's actually you know, a guide. It's a reference guide here, and it tells everything that you want to know about the use of double agents and their purpose, obviously, and a lot of very, very particular descriptions, you know, of how they operate. And there's so much detail here, Jim, that, you know, this is one that needs to really be studied, because, you know, this is the blueprint for the CIA, for the Cold War, you know. And you have, you know, all these. I don't know if you guys are aware of Nozenko, the Nozenko case, who was a supposed double agent. Who knew some things about the JFK assassination, and who was held incommunicado, you know, for years and in solitary confinement. Okay, and this here, some of this stuff here, I just thought, here, for example, here's the table of content, and double agent as a person, willingness, emotional stability, emotional attachments to others. For example, what this is a blueprint, a guide of what type of individual would serve best as a double agent, and look what's covered here. Level of intelligence.
Well, what's particularly valuable about this, Larry, is Lee Oswald needs to satisfy all those criteria.
Exactly. And not only Lee, I would have to say Marina, because she, and Marguerite Oswald and the entire clan, I have to say, because, Oswald had a cousin, what was her name, Moretz, who had also worked for the CIA. So, this goes, pretty deep here, Look, ambition, clandestinity, introversion, extroversion, other traits, that they're looking for, for these double agents, prior intelligence associations, and a lot of this stuff is redacted, but I'm going to show you enough here that's going to really show you, give you an overview of what this is all about. Obviously, everybody knows, what double agents are for, but some of the stuff here is really out there, Jim. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that.
Oh, I love it. I think this is wonderful, Larry. You got to go through the checklist and compare with, Lee, because you're going to get here a profile of Lee Oswald. I have no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't Marina have some sort of intelligent background on the Russian side?
Her uncle was KGB, sure.
Mm-hmm. I found a document, and maybe we'll show it next week, talking about Marina, where Kenneth Porter, who was the FBI agent who babysitted Marina after the assassination, ended up as being arrested or something like that, for some kind of domestic problem, with Marina herself. I had never heard of anything like that, and it's in these new documents. So a lot of this is really unraveling now, Jim. So anyway.
Wait, what's going on with Porter, the one that married Marina?
He was an FBI agent, right?
Yeah, he was an FBI agent who, they decided to get him married to Marina, and he's the one who supposedly raised Rachel in June,
Nothing like having a handler in the house.
Right, babysitter. That's what I said, babysitter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you see DA here, it means double agent operations. Okay. So I'll just scroll down here and see if we see anything here of interest. Definition. Okay, definition. Okay, here's a good one. Jim, you want to go for this one?
A double agent is a person who engages in clandestine activity for two intelligence or security services or more in joint operations, who provides information about one to the other or about each to the other, and who is wittingly withholding significant information from one on the instruction of the other, or is unwittingly manipulated by one so that significant information is withheld from the other service. Peddlers. Yeah.
Can you make heads or tails of that? I mean, just that first sentence, is so convoluted there.
It's a good one. Peddlers, fabricators, and others who do not perform a service for an intelligence agency, but only for themselves, are not agents at all and therefore are not DAs. As a rule, the DA has an agent relationship with both services, a fact which distinguishes him from the penetration agent who usually serves the CI service as an agent, but the target or adversary service as a staff member or in a staff capacity. Multiple agents frequently draw a variety of assignments from several services, although they may provide counterintelligence information, and although they present difficulties in handling and security, which resemble these problems in the double agent operation. The two types are distinct. The DA is usually directed against a single adversary, whereas the multiple agent resembles a private detective with a number of clients.
Who makes this thing up? Who makes it?
Love it. The part of the definition which stipulates that withholding of significant information results from the fact that an agent who tells everything he knows to both sides becomes, unless unwittingly manipulated by one of the services, an unauthorized liaison channel with the enemy. Such situations are unprofitable and cease to be operations. In fact, they would terminate agents of that kind, either literally or figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all double agent ops begin with in one way, a walk-in or a talk-in, hostile agent detected and doubled, or a provocation. KUBARK, meaning CIA, often acquires a DA case by transfer from another ODYOK service.
ODYOK is U.S. government.
Right, or from, well, liaison. When it does, it's important the type of origin be included in the information obtained from the transferring service. A DA case can also result if one service offers recruitment to the agent of another, not because of provocation or stakeout, but by chance. The transferred agent. Analysis suggests nearly 2/3 of KUBRIC's DA ops begin for KUBRIC by transfer from another service. Usually, however, the transferring service merely made initial contact with a walk-in and turned him over to KUBRIC without having used him operationally. If a going operation is transferred, it is vital that the base or case officer accepting jurisdiction obtain the case records of the representatives of the transferring service should be debriefed as completely as possible. Flaws embedded in the operation may make it unsuitable for exploitation or may require correction. In addition to determining origin, the KUBRIC case officer should obtain the prior service's assessment of the DA, both as person and as agent. Even if the case officer considers the earlier handling was defective, he should give due weight to such an assessment. In a few operations, KUBRIC has repeated the mistakes of the transferring service through failure to obtain an assessment or through ignoring the earlier record.
Let's see what else. Detected and doubled. Okay, yeah. There's a good one. About a fifth.
About a fifth of the DA cases handled directly by KUBRIC have begun with the identification of a hostile agent, interrogation, and doubling. Analysis suggests that in peacetime, D&D cases are frequently perilous and unprofitable. The agent's agreement to double obtained under stated or implied duress is rarely accompanied by a real switch in loyalties.
Obviously.
This exception is the agent who served the adversary unwillingly under pressure and who, though afraid to approach the authorities on his own initiative, is relieved when his clandestine role is brought to light. The risk in handling D&D cases is also mitigated in joint operations conducted with liaison services that can exercise strong executive authority.
Here's an interesting one, the provocation agent. Remember, Lee was supposedly an agent provocateur in New Orleans.
Yes.
You know.
Provocation is the least common origin of DA cases. When employed, it has in the past been used by a block service against KUBRIC or other Western services more frequently than vice versa. Provocation may be direct, as in approach by a walk-in or a talk-in, or indirect. The latter technique usually employs an agent whose access and other assets make him attractive to the adversary and who places himself in the way of recruitment without seizing the initiative. Provocation through direct approach is plainly difficult if the adversary service is sophisticated. Even the agent whom we initially consider detected and doubled can be a provocation. We may have learned something, but not all of the story of his ties to the adversary because the adversary wanted us to, or the agent's confession may be partial. He may withhold, for example, one channel of communication to the hostile service and then through that channel tell the adversary how much he has told us. The provocation agent establishing initial contact as a walk-in must have direct contact with the target service at least once. And the target service, if interested in the bait, is likely to try to arrange for future meetings on territory under its jurisdiction or that of a cooperative service. Under such circumstances, the provoking service usually fears some slippage of control. The provocateur, who never appears, who makes contact only by mail,
wire transfer. Oh no! Oh wait! I'm sorry, not wire. What's
or go-between or a like medium is less likely to be acceptable to the target service, and if accepted is less likely to be trusted. But the security and control advantages for the provoking service are obviously weighty. Kubrick uses provocation. Use of provocation seems to be a rarity, so that the available evidence has not provided a basis for estimating our effectiveness in using the technique. Because its value has been demonstrated by others, however, personnel are urged to plan and mount as feasible provocation operations designed to yield counterintelligence of high quality. The way in which a double agent operates is of continuing significance. The chances that Kubrick will get the story, get the edge, are best if the agent's prior service was with Kubrick rather than the opposition. Better than average if he's a walk-in or has not delayed in telling his story to a non-communist official or service and who passes Kubrick testing, and are poor if a detected adversary agent has been compelled to double. As the operation develops, a case officer should not forget the significance of the way in which it began. So some black here, some actually edited here.
Yes. In a very key point here in the document, goals, Kubrick, and adversary. This is where obviously they start spelling the whole thing out for you, Jim. And this is what we see.
Very interesting. Well, see, this is methods. They're more concerned about concealing their methods than any other aspect.
Yeah, but they already are, in a lot of this document. So, I don't know what the purpose is.
Well, you got different censors who,
Yeah.
are more or less aware of what other censors have done. Adversary goals. Analysis of a number of unilateral Kubrick double agent operations is always followed adversary objectives listed in order of descending frequency. A, to obtain information on immigrants and immigrant groups outside the bloc. This goal is frequently coupled with the purpose of gaining information about AIS or other non-communist IS uses of immigrants. To penetrate the AIS or other non-communist services. C, to acquire intelligence about U.S. non-intelligence personnel and organizations abroad, principally military. D, to serve other adversarial operations in a supporting role. E, to obtain information about AIS-associated organizations abroad. F, to assassinate or kidnap. G.
Wait, number F?
Yeah, that's a good one, huh?
Yeah.
G, to ensure the safe return of an agent detected by the AIS. H, to exploit for two-gauge purposes. I, to recruit or place an agent inside PV prime. J, to establish an agent as long-range illegal in the West. K, to determine the fate and whereabouts of bloc intelligence defectors. The early discernment of adversary's true objective is important because determination of hostile appetite, obtaining clearance for release of information to the DA or other operational decisions and termination and disposal requires an understanding of the purposes of the opposition. Of course, the ultimate goals of the hostile service may not become evident for some time, but estimates based on targets, access, and the DA's potential are still useful.
This reminds me, of the Spy versus Spy comic.
Yeah. Cloak and Dagger.
It's got 4 key tests that might be worth reviewing. The testing of a double agent should be continuous. A wide choice of testing mechanisms is available, but before a decision is reached on accepting or rejecting a DA opportunity, asking the following 4 key questions will help us to strike the balance. And here they only give 3. A, has a potential DA told us everything, or are there any indications of withholding? In particular, is there reason to suspect he has withheld a communications channel to the opposition? B, does a prospective DA have stability? That is he emotionally and psychologically stable, and are there good prospects of conducting the operation on a long-term basis? Can he maintain the anticipated stresses indefinitely? C, does the opposition trust him? Some indication of degree of adversary trust may be found in his length of service, the nature and level of his assignments, level of pay, and quality of communication systems provided him.
Redacted. redacted.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they were saying that people that may have worked for someone a long time, you can go in and turn them into an agent like
well,
that.
well, you know, this is, don't forget the backdrop, the setting of all this is the Cold War, you know.
Right. No, this is a East versus West. You might as well be talking
Absolutely, absolutely.
West Germany versus East.
Absolutely. This is a real heavy duty stuff, you know, and as you can see.
And this was actually an operational manual. They were
It
following
is.
these guidelines in the field at the time.
It is. It is. This is an operational manual. Absolutely, Jim. This is exactly, and look at the redactions here, you know.
Yeah.
But still, you've got enough, you know, you've got enough information here, which actually I don't even know why they, you know, released this, you know.
You get the general idea.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, on and on and on, you know, just,
It's all very sensible when you think about it. It's very straightforward if you're trying to give a dispassionate description of what you're about and appropriate signals or signs that something may be right or wrong.
Well, they're also sensitive, extremely sensitive stuff here.
Yeah, I mean, it was top secret, then it was downgraded to secret, and then it was released.
Yeah, the DA as a person, you've got psychological profiles.
Okay, in the opening phase of the DA operation, as was mentioned earlier, all basic personalia on the agent and selected associates are assembled, bona fides are determined or estimated, and a preliminary psychological assessment is drawn up. Somewhat later, but still early in the case, a more searching examination should be made of the agent as a person. This assessment set to a headquarters as a separate dispatch should include information about the following topics. The following discussion of the psychological characteristics of double agents is based upon research and analysis of unilateral peacetime coup barque cases. Our post-war experience strongly suggests that there are vital differences between peacetime DAs and DA operations and those directed in war, when patriotism, idealism, and subordination of self were more frequently encountered.
Of course.
A willingness to serve as a DA. The results of case analysis to date amply demonstrate the importance of establishing whether the agent wants to be a double or not. Those peacetime DAs who enjoy the role tend to share in greater or lesser degree a number of distinctive psychological and emotional characteristics. An understanding of these traits is extremely useful to the case officer. Unwilling DAs serving under services or both against their own inclinations are more variegated, but are usually unlike the willing doubles in major respects. They usually seek, consciously or not, to end the operations as quickly as they can without damage to themselves or those emotionally close to them. Therefore, a long-range plan of indefinite duration based upon unwilling double agents is very likely to founder because his personality rather than external, because of his personality rather than external operational factors.
I just have a question. What exactly, what would be the definition of a double agent? You know, an agent?
A psychopath. They're looking for psychopaths.
No, you know, an agent who works for the U.S. government, for example.
Well, it said working for two different agencies, but yet in an asymmetrical fashion. In other words, not providing the same information to both, but being selective and therefore only providing partial or targeted information to the objective he's infiltrating, but complete information to his own agency, in this case, the CIA.
Mm-hmm. So, and how would the KGB?
I want to go through this, Larry or Gary. So I want to go back up here. So, yeah. No. Yeah. In the operation study to date, willing DAs have outnumbered the unwilling in a ratio of 7 to 1.
Really?
In a majority of the coup barque DA cases studied to date, the case officers have made little or no attempt to explain in writing the kinds of persons with whom they were dealing. It is plain that case officers cannot be expected to produce professional psychiatric or psychological analyses, nor are these usually necessary. It is also clear that case officers invariably form an estimate of the agent's personality. But if the estimate is dim, unformulated or unreported, two drawbacks result. The case officer's handling of the agent is weakened, and the quality of help from headquarters, station, or elsewhere also suffers. Our experience shows there's a high correlation between a sound assessment and a sound operation. Emotional stability. More useful than a general conclusion about the DA's emotional stability is a report of the circumstances under which he is stable and unstable. Willing DAs show a much higher than average emotional stability in stress situations, which they tend to dramatize and enjoy. For example, they often show little or no reluctance to meet the adversary in a denied area. They are apt, however, to exaggerate their coolness under fire when reporting on their adversary. Conversely, they are less stable in the slack periods that are most persons. Suffering from boredom rather than tension, they may relieve the monotony by heavy drinking, sexual adventureness, or shady financial deals. Their dangerous restlessness evaporates, however, when they are kept busy operationally. Unwilling DAs show the reverse pattern. They avoid situations of stress and are agitated by them.
I want to cite an example of what could have been a double agent, because we've been talking about Leering 3 since December. Remember, Leering 3 was the guy, Carlos Jurado del Mar, who said that Sylvia Duran and Lee Oswald, had an affair and blah blah blah. And but this guy was recruited by this Roughton guy, as an agent to go back and forth to Cuba because he had lived in Cuba. But how do we know that Leering 3 wasn't actually a double agent? Sure. I want to point out that
I would say it's highly probable that he was, Larry.
Yeah, exactly. He remember, if you all recall, Roughton set him up, and he set a safe house for him, which he had bugged, and that he had constant surveillance. And that's one of the reasons that Roughton did that, because he wanted to make sure that Leering 3, Jurado del Mar, was not a double agent. Actually, working for the CIA, but really working for Cuba. Because the guy had lived in Cuba for about 3 or 4 years, before, right after the revolution. And he was married to a Cuban woman. So, this is why, I wanted to bring this example up, on Leering 3, because it's very, very probable that he might have been a double agent. Okay?
That's right. I agree completely.
Emotional attachment to others. Here you go.
The voluntary double agent often seems incapable of forming lasting adult emotional relationships with others. His attitude toward other people is basically competitive and exploitative. Many willing DAs have been divorced at least once and have gone through a series of mistresses. Because most willing doubles are good con men and good verbalizers are usually adept at creating an impression of sincere feeling, of courtesy and concern for others. Sometimes they are good enough actors to convince themselves temporarily. Most of the time, however, they are emotionally empty. One consequence is that a case officer handling a willing DA in time of peace should be extremely chary about concluding that esteem or friendship for the case officer plays a significant role in the agent's motivation. The DA may feel a close rapport as a result of the clandestine nature of the association, rather than the personality of the case officer, but even this reaction is likely to last about as long as the agent meeting. Another practical consequence is location of members of the voluntary DA's family is likely to be much less important as an element of control than it may seem. The agent may feel close to one or more persons, more commonly a son or daughter than a wife or parent, but even such bonds are not typical. The defector or double who left a wife behind in a denied area and who continues to express concern is likelier to be reacting as he thinks he is expected to react than to be expressing sincere and deep feelings. This is actually fairly subtle in certain respects here.
Yeah.
Unwilling DAs are unlikely to be demonstrative, but they do seek enduring emotional relationships. Their concern about members of the immediate family is likely to be genuine. In fact, it may have been this concern with the adversary, which the adversary exploited in recruiting the agent. Unwilling DAs tend to remain aloof or seek filial relationships with case officers. Level of intelligence. Both willing and unwilling double agents are characteristically above average in terms of intelligence. Willing DAs usually think quickly and show cleverness. Their extent of formal education well above average, and their typical vocation suggests some depth of intelligence, but not feeling as well. The fact that willing DAs are almost invariably without funds or property reflects not a lack of intellectual competence, but a tendency to trust to their wits, not to their bank accounts. Linked with high native intelligence is a voluntary DA skill as a verbalizer. Typical overt occupations in this group are those of interpreter, translator, editor, journalist, writer or speaker, bibliographer, teacher, and salesman. The DA may be at home in 2 or several languages. One drawback is that his reports, both verbal and written, may require careful stripping before the plain facts can be discerned. The willing DA's combination of intelligence and unscrupulousness makes him as hard to handle as a two-edged razor blade. One piece of usually applicable advice can be offered. The case officer should avoid competing with the DA. Relying on the authority inherent in his position, the case officer can best handle a clever competitive double through calm firmness, not through evident anger. Willing DAs are likely to respond well to a stick and carrot or kick and kiss technique. Your last report was excellent, but it was not as good as the work I expect from a man of your abilities, as an example.
This is deep stuff, Jim.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Gullibility. Willing DAs are usually skeptical about the motives and abilities of others, but unskeptical about themselves. They distrust others, including those with whom they are on terms of intimacy. They are frequently cynical. They tend to overrate the adversary and presumably kubark and to overrate themselves.
But notice how they have the individual who becomes a double agent enclosed in this bubble, of certain characteristics that they can predict. Okay, you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Yes, they need that. They need to know who they're dealing with, the type of person, and the behavior can be expected of them.
No, and they have them analyzed and they have them pegged already, in as certain types of individuals, and which I just thought it's just unbelievable, because apparently they have been dealing with double agents for so long that they have been able to create this manual.
A very powerful profile.
Yeah, exactly. The profile. Yeah. And in so many different areas of, psychological, et cetera, so this is, I think, an extraordinary document. Trustworthiness, gullibility,
frequently cynical. They tend to underrate the adversary and presumably kubark, and to overrate themselves. Unwilling doubles are also skeptical, though less so than the hard-bitten willing types. They are as skeptical about themselves as about others. Trustworthiness.
Is there any trustworthiness?
Well, we'll find out. Willing to be trusted to follow instructions that coincide in their view with their own interests. They become unreliable if the case officer's orders conflict with their wishes. Confronted with indications or evidence of an agent's untrustworthiness, the kubark case officer should consider whether the unreliability is the result of the agent's loyalty to the adversary or of his own egocentrism. The former cause ends the case or puts it on a totally different footing.
Which would probably be what kind of ending case would probably be terminate with extreme prejudice?
It could be. I would say in certain cases, depending on the seriousness of the matter with which they've been dealing. The latter is merely one of the facts of DA life, to be expected and countered by independent checks and sound handling. The scanty evidence available on the trustworthiness of unwilling double agents suggests on a day-to-day basis they are more reliable than their opposite number. If they disagree with the case officer's instruction, as they are particularly likely to do if an element of personal risk is involved, they will usually express their concern. But if they accept an order, they will normally try faithfully to carry it out. On a long-range basis, however, unwilling DAs cannot be considered reliable because their indefinite continuation of the operation is directly contrary to their wishes. They are prone to make deliberate or unconscious slips, which will end the operation without bringing retribution down upon them.
Yeah, probably an agent with a family, with kids, or something like that. Not like I want to have their their kids involved, in some kind of retaliation.
You want to get out in a non fashion, right?
Yeah.
Part 2, paragraph D listed 4 key questions used, and we actually only had 3. Whether to accept a DA opportunity. One of the questions is whether the opposition trusts the DA. In the continuous task of agent assignment, the KUBARK case officer therefore should mirror or read. Is adversary confident in the DA diminishing, increasing, or stable? If it's static or weakening, what can be done to bolster it? Ambition. Willing double agents are ambitious in the sense of seeking immediate material rewards with little effort. Few are content to work slowly and consistently toward long-range goals. Gratification is non-deferrable. They seek the immediate effect or gain by display of skill or cleverness, by demonstrating artistic or intellectual attainments, or by such displays of generosity as buying drinks for the house. But they lose interest when the easy satisfactions have been achieved. The case officer working with a willing DA on a long-range operation is usually well advised to stress immediate objectives, especially those which permit the agent some ego gratification rather than distant goals in which the agent may not be interested. Unwilling. Go ahead.
Sounds like Chauncey Holt, the last one.
Well, Chauncey was a totally reliable, stable guy who worked for long-term goals. He was.
You see where he would demonstrate his artistic and intellectual attainments? It seems like.
Yeah, but he had them. I mean, the guy was some kind of genius. I mean, he was a painter, a counterfeiter, a forger, an expert shot, an assassin, a teacher of assassins. He was a phenomenal guy, Gary.
Yeah.
Did we deliberately flip past the?
No, I'm just looking. Where were we? You want to go here to clandestinity? This looks interesting.
In the typical willing DA, clandestinity is doing what comes naturally. He's usually accustomed to concealing facts from others, his wife, his creditor, the local authorities, his skepticism about the motives of others, which reflects his own exploitative motives toward others, reinforces his secretiveness. He enjoys concealing or withholding for its own sake. In the early stages of handling a willing DA, the case officer may be delighted with his innate knack for the clandestine and the nimbleness of his wits, but there are 2 dangers. One is the agent is prone to conceal things from his case officer. 2, KUBARKs need to know everything about him. Conflicts need to know everything about him that conflicts directly with his desire not to place himself in the power of another through divulging too much. Persistent case officer digging into his past, especially if performed formally in accordance with the PHS outline, may merely arouse his competitiveness, his desire to outwit. But encouraging him to reminisce, especially about episodes that place him in a favorable light and let him brag a little, is likely to be rewarding. Another danger is that the willing DA may resist or ignore training in operational security. He is used to depending on his natural talents to get him out of trouble. But he is intelligent enough to recognize that the adversary service is professionally clandestine and that KUBARK security training is not a denial of his aptitudes, but a chance to expand them. The few unwilling DAs studied to date were found to be less clandestine than the average person. They need careful step-by-step training in security. If they are to face a situation which they consider dangerous or even unusual, they want and need a specific prior briefing by the case officer. Whether the DA is willing or unwilling, the case officer should determine the kind and amount of security training needed and should apply it, being careful to tailor the training to DA purposes and avoid training the agent for the adversary's purposes.
Well, it's hard. I just don't.
I just love it. His desire to outwit. You know,
you know, it's just, it goes on and on here, you know, psychological profile, the DA as an agent, you know, we could go all night, you know,
I mean,
adversary training, you know.
he was talking about where they're looking for
covered
someone.
that. Well, I think this is like repetitive. We already covered that. Yeah. I wanna go now.
Already flipped the hourglass, Gary. Did you already flip the hourglass?
Yeah, we're about almost halfway between.
Yeah, we covered this already. I think this is like okay. Here's some.
According to statements.
Oh, okay.
According to statements of DAs and case officers, the following are the principal motives of DAs for serving Kubark. The percentage states the number of agents reportedly thus motivated in comparison with the total number studied. Monetary, 77%. Political, 55%. Pleasure in the clandestine, 50%. Personal, 50%. Personal protection, 41%. Ideological, 23%. Fear, 23%. And patriotism, 9%. Statements of the same agents and their case officers about their motives for serving the opposition shows a very different picture. Fear, 50%. Monetary, 50%. Pleasure in the clandestine, 27%. Self-protection, 27%, and personal, 14%. No political, ideological, or patriotic motives for serving a communist service were reported in any of the DA cases studied.
This is just unbelievable. I wanted to show you guys before we run out of time here, because I have another interesting document. Maybe if I can just go here.
Sure.
Oops. I need to stop screen share, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
You want me to pause momentarily?
Yeah, okay. Okay.
All right, Larry, go ahead.
All right. Can you guys see this one?
Yep.
This one is dated 9/11/63, before the assassination. Okay. And this one had been suppressed for a long, long time, indefinite approval of CIA, as you can see here. And this one has to do with directors meeting with John McCone. Okay, now this is a one-on-one meeting between, obviously, Hoover. They never mention Hoover by name, but we all know who the director was in 1963. Okay, and this one is really, really interesting, because this one shows you the antagonism that both agencies had towards one another, Jim. And as you know, Hoover was always of the opinion that the FBI was good enough to handle any type of investigation, foreign and domestic. Okay, so you always had that, like I said, antagonism, and there are a couple of
He was very territorial.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Although Mr. McCone has indicated he will not be raising any problems or issues, the director may find the following of assistance. To say that the two agencies work in complete harmony is not true. Conflicts in past years have had their influence. Fortunately, we've been successful in establishing very effective working relations with several key figures in the agency who have been very cooperative and who are sincerely interested in getting the job done. Without this existing framework, our relations with CIA could degenerate into a chaotic state.
That's incredible. That first paragraph, Jim, is just...
Yeah, that's quite stunning all by itself. Very candid, very candid.
It is.
With regard to differences with CIA, there were two situations during the past year which had a significant bearing on the relations between the agencies. Approximately a year ago, we learned CIA had established contact with a Cuban exile who'd come into the U.S. and who had confessed to the agency to have been trained as a Cuban intelligence agent. CIA had this information for nearly a month before notifying the Bureau. We lodged very vigorous protests. Read. The other event which led to a heated conflict arose from information which we disseminated to the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board concerning the Bureau's technical coverage of diplomatic establishments in this country.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Jim, that if I were to guess who it was that they redacted there, okay, it would have to be A.M. Lash, also known as Rolando Kubela, because that is exactly what he was trained as. That's exactly his profile right there. And the only thing that they didn't mention there was his name and his cryptonym. Okay, so go ahead.
Very good, very good, very good. On May 15, 1963, McCone informed Mr. Belmont that a letter which the Bureau had sent to the aforementioned board should be retracted because the communication included statements which incorrectly were attributed to him, the CIA director. Mr. Belmont adamantly refused to retract the letter, and after McCone asked for an apology, Mr. Belmont again made it clear that no apology was coming from him.
Wow.
The Bureau never retracted the letter because statements disseminated by us were predicated on information which had been given to us by two top CIA officials. The conflict was eventually resolved by McCone writing a letter to the board and admitting that two of his subordinates had erroneously briefed the Bureau on a particular matter.
Of course, they're gonna blame somebody down, an underling, Jim. Of course.
Right. Status of McCone in the present administration. McCone obviously enjoys acquiring and using power. He considers himself not only the head of a particular government agency, but also the director of Central Intelligence, and in
Fiasco.
we have not seen any evidence of high-grade intelligence being developed by CIA in Cuba since McCone became director of the agency.
And let's not forget that who appointed McCone, it was JFK.
Yeah.
Assassination. Yeah, before, it was,
Yeah, they weren't happy with his appointment, that's for sure.
To show impressive results, McCone must fall back on intelligence information developed through high-altitude photography and the use of other sophisticated technical equipment being used to photograph targets and to intercept communications. Much of this is, of course, being done in collaboration with other U.S. agencies, such as the Air Force. FBI cooperation with CIA. During the past year, there have been numerous instances of excellent cooperation rendered by the Bureau to CIA. Set forth are some outstanding examples. Information from sensitive source Solo. We have furnished CIA information from our sensitive Communist Party source who has traveled to Russia and has been in contact with Soviet leaders. This information has been most valuable to CIA in following developments, particularly the difference between Red China and Russia. Top Hat. Our sensitive penetration of the Soviet military service has produced highly valuable information of use to CIA. Gimme. This is a highly sensitive penetration of the Czech intelligence service. This information has significantly assisted CIA in obtaining a current picture of Czech intelligence organization. And of course, Larry, as you are implying, this is all about actual operations by double agents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bureau,
it gets better.
Bureau furnishes CIA as a valuable source. Our sensitive Czech source, Gimme, is scheduled to return to Czechoslovakia. Arrangements have been made to make him available to CIA. Fedora. Though this sensitive KGB penetration, we have furnished CIA leads pertaining to Soviet intelligence operations abroad. In addition, we have given the agency data pertaining to the organization and functions of KGB. Soviet mail drops outside of the United States. Through our investigations in this country, we have identified Soviet mail drops in other areas, and we have given this valuable information to CIA. CIA approaches to the Soviet and satellite nationals in the United States. Under agreed-to restrictions, we have permitted CIA to contact Soviet and satellite visitors in this country for the purpose of assessing their potential as sources when they return to their native countries. That's for recruiting them as double agents.
Yeah.
Cuban sources. We have afforded CIA the opportunity to brief Bureau sources before such sources made trips to Cuba. Sensitive Cuban espionage operation. Both FBI and CIA have access to intercepted radio communications being utilized by Cuban intelligence. The Bureau has been far ahead of CIA in identifying agents mentioned in the communications and has furnished pertinent information to CIA.
Is he implying that the FBI is better than the CIA, Jim?
It certainly sounds like it, Larry. Sounds like the FBI at that point in time.
Yeah, right.
Technical data to CIA. The Bureau has been very successful in identifying Soviet and Cuban secret writing techniques. We have made this knowledge available to CIA. CIA cooperation with the Bureau, top hat. CIA did an excellent job of servicing drops in Moscow in this very sensitive case. This was done at considerable risk and was productive for us. Double agents for Bureau. There have been a number of instances where CIA cooperated Soviet double agents outside the U.S. and then made these individuals available to the Bureau for use in the U.S. In this connection, it's also noted that in our development of the alternative sources, Fedora, KGB penetration, and GIME penetration of Czech intelligence services, CIA furnished valuable assistance. Vladimir Romashkin case. Several weeks ago, CIA advised us that one of its employees had been contacted by the Soviets. With CIA's cooperation, we conducted an investigation which led to the ouster of a Soviet official and very favorable publicity for the Bureau. That was not lost on Edgar, I can assure you.
No.
Up coverage in Mexico. Through surveillance and surreptitious entry, CIA produced valuable information in our investigation of blank, 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 whom we since have doubled.
Now, all of a sudden, coverage in Mexico, and it's redacted. There has to be a reason for this, and it could be, something that goes back, comes back to them regarding the JFK case.
I agree with you. Whom we have since doubled is ambiguous. Does that mean they replaced him with someone who was a double, or that they're getting twice as much information, or what? That's an ambiguous sentence.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Jim. Even the politicians and the upper level, high level leaders in Mexico had close ties to the CIA. If you go to Le Tempo was, I believe, even the president of Mexico at the time. Okay, so and he even had a CIA cryptonym, and CIA was had infiltrated every aspect of the Mexican government, which is the reason why it was so easy to create that legend of Lee Oswald and Sylvia Duran, which prevails to this day.
Very good, very good. Availability of defectors. CIA has been most cooperative in making defectors available to the Bureau for interviews. Cooperation with laboratory. From time to time, CIA has made certain documents and equipment available to the Bureau's laboratory. For example, a few weeks ago, CIA made available to our laboratory at no cost a portable unit designed for making radiographed X-rays of papers recording such characteristics as watermarks, printing, etc. Assistance in developing a key criminal informant. Through assistance afforded by CIA, we gained access to an individual who subsequently became a valuable informant in the labor rackets field, New York case number.
Activities. Why are they, why are they redacting? Yeah.
And here we got a blanked out activities. Maybe it were secret. Informant provided by a sensitive CIA source has been very useful in following the activities of blank agents in the U.S. Like possible topics which McCone may refer to. Jack Edward Dunlap. This is the National Security Agency employee who supplied information to the Soviets and who committed suicide in July of this year. We recently received information from our sensitive source Top Hat in Moscow confirming that Dunlap worked for the Soviets. Top Hat's information was furnished to McCone last week. McCone is particularly concerned about the possibility that Dunlap may have furnished the Soviets information, which led to the compromise of Oleg Penkovsky, sensitive CIA source.
You really think this guy committed suicide, Jim?
Right. Yes, there are other explanations more plausible. Yes, there are a lot of people being suicided, alas, including some rather famous ones lately. Personnel security. The Dunlap case has been raising questions concerning the effectiveness of security within U.S. agencies. McCone anticipates that Congress eventually may initiate some inquiry, and he already has been informed that the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board is looking into the matter. Last week, Mr. McCone asked Mr. Belmont for his views on personnel security. McCone at the time was briefed concerning our careful screening of applicants and our strong administrative controls, including inspections. It was emphasized that the Bureau always resolves security problems in favor of the FBI rather than the individual involved. Mr. McCone was told the key to the situation appeared to be tight screening and control procedures and the willingness to take prompt action. Coverage of non-Soviet bloc diplomatic establishments in the U.S. In the spring of this year, McCone brought up the matter before the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, and he subsequently had a discussion with Mr. Delmont. Essentially, McCone is most interested in technical coverage of individuals and installations of non-Soviet bloc countries. He has left the impression that, in his opinion, such coverage could be expanded in the U.S. and thereby produce more intelligence and more sources. Our coverage in this field at the present time is quite extensive. With regard to CIA, we have the understanding that if the agency desires particular technical coverage, we'll give each request the necessary consideration. Blank, and this probably is covert, is probably the word. Yeah. In the early part of this year, we initiated extensive investigation of the alleged blank agents in this country on the basis of data furnished to us by a sensitive CIA source. This source has informed CIA that blank has embarked on an extensive espionage program in the U.S., primarily designed to collect scientific data which will enable blank to hasten its development of a nuclear capability. We have disseminated the results of our investigation. It's not a 4-letter, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-letter name. It's a 6-letter name for a country.
Do you think
it's not Iran? It's not.
Do you think that where the first one could be alleged Mossad agents in this country on the basis of data?
Well, that's a 6-letter word. That certainly could be. That's
Russia.
And it's talking about nuclear capability?
Yeah, it certainly could be. We have disseminated the results of our investigation to CIA. We're continuing the handling of numerous leads. Information developed by us so far has failed to disclose any evidence that the blank are stealing any classified secrets in the U.S. The blank appears to be obtaining voluminous information available to the blank through normal contacts between blank officials and their counterparts in the U.S.
Jim, I don't know about you, but if you put those two terms that we just talked about in this, it's very cohesive. You know, it's very
Israel and Mossad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Top Hat, a CIA agent, recently obtained the message which our sensitive source Top Hat secreted in a drop in Moscow. The message included information concerning Soviet activities in France, Germany, and Austria. We have given this data to CIA. In addition, McCone was told that Top Hat identified Dunlap as a Soviet agent. We have told CIA that Top Hat may have loaded the drop as early as June 1963. The delay in obtaining the communication prevented us from getting into the Dunlap case well before the subject committed suicide.
No.
This is all pretty damn interesting. CIA did not service the drop because our informant did not exhibit an agreed-to signal. He apparently did not use the signal in order to fully protect himself. On the other hand, CIA was unable to service the drop until August because State Department adamantly refused to give CIA clearance to conduct any activity in Moscow. This position was taken by State because it felt any operational activity might jeopardize the test ban talks.
And Jim, notice that at no time in this document is there any reference to any type of consultation with upper echelon in the government, such as the Attorney General or the President of the United States, who at the time were RFK and JFK.
Yeah,
this is like these people running their own show here. You know, it's like.
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's right. I think there is that arrogance, just as Hoover called the FBI seat of government.
Exactly. That's exactly true.
Anatoly Golitsyn, a.k.a. Anatoly Kilmov. This is the Soviet KGB defector who came to the U.S. under CIA control, feuded with the agency, left for England under British intelligence control, and very recently returned to the U.S. Since his return, he has met with the Attorney General and with McCone. He has been extremely critical of the U.S. position toward Russia. Although a prima donna, Golitsyn has been the source of extremely valuable information for all U.S. agencies, including the Bureau. Since his return, he has indicated to the Attorney General and CIA that he will contact appropriate agencies when he sees fit. In the past, Golitsyn has asked to meet with the director. The director made it very clear that he will not see Golitsyn.
Of course.
Michael Golitsky, the subject is a former high-ranking official of the Polish Security Service who defected in January 1961 and in recent weeks has been an embarrassing problem for CIA because of his many complaints. He has communicated with the president, the attorney general, and has been in contact with a congressman. He is slated to testify before the Senate Internal Subcommittee in the near future. He has accused CIA of dishonesty and overall failure to comply with his needs. Mm-hmm. We have had access to Golitsky, who has been a valuable source of information. However, we have been most careful not to become involved in the feud between him and CIA. We have cooperated to the extent of furnishing CIA any information received from Golitsky which might be of assistance to the agency. President, Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board.
Last page.
For your information, McCone has found this board to be a constant irritant. This board was established several years ago by the Eisenhower administration, then continued by President Kennedy. It is designed to periodically review foreign intelligence and counterintelligence activities.
Especially after the Bay of Pigs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What a pain in the ass this board happens to be.
The present chairman of the committee is Clark Clifford, and the staff director is J. Patrick Coyne. Apparently, McCone does not like a group such as this board looking into his operations. There is some indication that his irritation arises from personal differences with Coyne. Winterström case. Colonel Stig Winterström, the Swedish military attaché who a few weeks ago admitted to his government that he'd been working for the Soviets. Winterström was in the U.S. from 1952 to 1957 and was collaborating with the Russians while he was here. Recently, McCone indicated that a damage report should be prepared on this case, and he expressed his opinion that this should be the responsibility of the Bureau. With regard to damage, he was referring to an evaluation of all information which Winterström may have gained from the U.S. We have taken the position that we will not prepare such a damage report, and if one is needed, the work should be done by each interested agency. Unknown subject, KBG agent known as Sasha. This is a Bureau investigation predicated on information furnished to us by Anatoly Golitsyn, the KGB defector who advised that CIA had been penetrated by KGB. We have been endeavoring to identify the unknown Soviet agent. We do have a suspect, John S. Berescu, who was born in Russia and who has been working for CIA for several years. McCone may not mention this matter, but he's very much concerned about the situation. We have been keeping CIA advised on all pertinent developments. That's a very interesting document, Larry.
Oh, yeah.
It gives you a real sense of day-to-day operations.
And some of these key redactions, like this one here, are very troubling to me, Jim. It's...
it would be surprising if it were Israel and Mossad. I agree with that.
Yeah. And, like I said, the president and RFK, obviously, were completely oblivious to all this. This is like a tug of war going on between CIA and FBI. Let's not forget that the top people at the CIA were fired by JFK after the Bay of Pigs. So that's where McCone comes in, okay, and he inherits, this antagonism here with the FBI, and this document speaks volumes as to,
what was the date of this document again?
This is September 9/11 of all days, 9/11.
9/11/63.
Prior to the assassination.
Yeah, of course. And some of these Mexico operations, it talks about down here could have to do with some of the sheep dipping that was going on in Mexico City prior to the assassination with Lee Oswald or other potential patsies.
Larry, you've done a great job of coming up with a couple of documents of special interest in relation to the issues that we care about the most.
Yeah, Mike Machanska has been looking into the possibility that some of these instances of supposed Americans, hanging out, in communist settings there. For example, when we talked about the Garo de Paz thing, that it might have been that they were not just impersonating Oswald, but perhaps somebody else like Thomas Arthur Valley, okay, or somebody else who they were trying to set up, in the same way that they did Lee Oswald. So, so it comes full circle as far as, the multiple patsy scenario that we have talked about so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. Well, you wanted the documents. You got the documents with Larry Rivera. All right, fellas, let's call it right there. This is JFK 202. We'll see you next week.